All right, welcome to part 2 of class 7, everybody. I'm going to be heading to the easel and we're going to start putting in the acrylic underpainting. And again, you can do this in oils or acrylics. I was actually going to ask you guys if you'd rather I started it in oils, but I've already got an acrylic base on there, so sorry about that. And my goal as we get up there again is to take this painting or this photo that we just designed all together on Photoshop and to basically do something somewhat similar to this. I'll still be altering and editing and changing things a little bit as I do that. Hopefully seeing things that could, use a little help or need some change. And I'm just going to try to get in a base layer of values, lights and darks. And because it's acrylics and I want to paint over it with oils, it's going to be perfect. It's got, well, the painting's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be perfect timing wise because I'll have 1 week to let that acrylic layer dry until next week. And if you want to do your bottom layer in oils or, your design layer in oils, that's fine. Because again, you're going to have a week if you step up and get it done earlier in the week. Yeah, and you can do it.
So you're going to do the color next week, demonstrate doing the color. Okay, good. So I want to see how
if it's really dry. I did bring out my transparent acrylic. I think it's earth red. We'll have to go look. It's up there on the palette. We can decide if we want to just lay that in so it's also drying, but I'm not positive the acrylics will be dry enough to glaze in today. So if that's the case, I may either glaze in tomorrow, that way it's fully dry by next week, or maybe I'll just glaze with oils next week and do it that way. So we can talk about that as we go along. All right, let's switch over there. And there's my very zoomed in.
What size?
Let me look in the garbage really quick. It is a 20 by 24. So again, this printed a little bit differently than this. This is an 8 by 11. If anybody want to do the math really quickly for me, 8.5 by 11, but that's all right. I'll be able to. This is the nice thing about like a scene like this is that it's loose enough, right? There's nothing there that needs to be exactly right. So if some of the trees are a little bigger or the sky is a little bigger, coming back over here to the Photoshop so I can see where is my horizon line. So for doing stuff like that, oftentimes I'll just kind of do, you can push the rulers, Control R to see the rulers. 20 by 24, where is my horizon line? Roughly right around 12 inches from the bottom. So sometimes with paintings, I'll really measure stuff out, and other times I don't, but let's go ahead and. So 12 inches from the bottom is where that is the acrylic paint, I promise. And are you guys hearing me okay from over here? I'm not sure which microphone it's picking up on.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just squeezing out black, white, and gray. I'm just going to give myself a quick mark of where 12 inches is from the bottom. No, that can't be right. All right, 12 inches from the top. Roughly. And then with a T-square,
Oh boy.
And I have lots of T-squares in the studio, all different sizes. I have some gigantic 4-footers. This is the most common with the two. This is a 24-inch, but this is a great way to make sure that you get a fairly straight horizon line. And again, this is just a marker. You're not going to see this line as the painting progresses, but everything is going to be relative to that. So I'm just giving myself a quick mark to see where that is. Now I need to check one more thing. And it is 9.5 inches in at approximately the 13-inch. So just below that, about an inch.
Goodness.
9, right about there. That line there is right where the edge of this, that's the main first big turn in the road is, and it's also kind of the edge of this pond. So I'm just giving myself just a couple quick marks. So also I'm just gonna quickly check the tops of trees are at about 10.5 inches down. So the tree line that goes on top of the hill, very easy for me to make those trees appear bigger than I want them, because it's, again, this is mostly about the sky. So those trees are not ever much above this height. So by just a couple little marks there, and maybe I will do one more quick check, is where's the top of the pond?
Michael, that brings a question. Sometimes I'll start the horizon line lower like that, but then when you add the trees, it almost makes it seem like the horizon line is at the halfway point.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you just have to make decisions, you know, it's not so much as is the horizon line right in the middle, it's more am I splitting my canvas in half with big shapes, big values, big colors. Apologize to keep stepping in front. 12.5. So approximately 12.5 inches down. Oh man, it's not much. So the top of the pond is only right about there. The top of our irrigation area,
Interesting.
right? So everything is right in this little space in the middle. And we've got the big foreground and the big sky. So it's really interesting that all right, so this. This, it's really interesting. Now, so you see how I just kind of give myself little markers, and then it's almost like connect in between, kind of looking for those angles. I do notice, you guys, a lot of you, especially people that are putting marshes and creeks into their paintings, that you're playing up these weird angles and weird bumps overly much. A lot of times as things recede into space, they appear actually flatter than we think. Great thing about acrylics is I put this line a little bit low, and I'm just kind of raising it up, and I'll be able to cover that up really quickly because of the quick drying time.
Oh, God, he is so good.
I could hear you.
Well, don't you like to hear those kinds of things?
I surely do. I meant to say, what?
I I was actually talking to my husband who's sitting behind me. I forgot I wasn't muted.
All right. So I'm just getting in my big shapes, and then I'm going to come basically obliterate everything and not let anything be too dear. And I'm just going to let this be a little bit more on the organic side. I'm not overly measuring, or, I've got my big stuff in, but truthfully, it's all, if these grasses here aren't exactly in the right spot or whatever else, it doesn't matter. It's just a dirt road and a field, and you know what I mean? Everything's very haphazardly. It just grew that way. It didn't, nobody planted it. It's not an English garden. It's not well planned. And I'm just giving myself enough marks that I don't, when I come back to it, I'm not getting lost. I'm just able to find my way around the picture plane. Using just really old, crappy brushes. I often save my old beat up oil brushes to use with my acrylic paints because I don't have like specific acrylic paints. So, and again, almost, I don't think I've ever done a finished acrylic painting. They're always just so far been underpaintings for oils, just kind of getting in my design, getting in my ideas, getting in my values. All right, at the top of this hill.
So would you say it's worth it spending 100 hours to learn Photoshop?
Is it worth it?
Yeah.
You can learn most of it for, I don't know. I mean, there's lots of classes that are offered. I haven't ever taken any, but I've been just kind of slowly using the same stuff the whole
Right.
time.
How long have you been using, how many years have you used Photoshop?
Since 99.
Yeah. See, back when it only had 3 functions, and then you just learn
That's
a little
pretty
bit more
much
every year.
Model that I'm using. I don't have the new ones. It's pretty lousy. Like my daughter screams at me whenever she has to use it because it doesn't make any sense to her because her school has the newest version. And she wants me to pay for it, but again, it's a monthly subscription now, and it's not cheap. It's, I think, almost like $30 a month or something. And I haven't seen her use it that much, so. So somebody was mentioning too that the sides here are pretty similar. So I either have to push this hill way back. I did make it come right down the middle, didn't I? So I'm wondering, what should I do to make it not so straight? Maybe I'll bring this tree over a little more. I will definitely lighten that hillscape back. And maybe let's bring up a couple of these trees just so they're a little bigger. And then I have to decide if I wanted this tree to be bigger. I just want to make sure I don't have a full lineup of shapes. All right, my road goes from here to here to here. I can bring it back this way. I can keep it going this way. And maybe then we bring it back. Back there in the hillside. It's just you know, it's all just testing. Nothing has to be locked in at all at this stage. I'm just kind of thinking and feeling my way out. We did all that work on Photoshop. We've got a nice design. We thought of a lot of the issues, but it doesn't mean I'm done. I'm still not copying the photo, right? I'm still not trusting everything. I'm still questioning. It's funny, this little marker, I want to turn it into a bush, but it's not. It's just a little note for myself. It's funny, you guys, we've spent enough time together now, and I've seen enough of your paintings. I'm actually, like, I start thinking about what would, you know, what would that student do? What would that student do? And some of you guys are so clever about your design and what you're doing and simplification and everything else that that's one of the benefits of being a teacher is I steal your guys's good ideas. And I've learned in our color class, I learned a lot about color because, you know, especially when we were in person, everybody would bring in their own brands of paint, different brands and different colors. And we could do these side-by-side experiments by squeezing out everybody's paints and trying all these different things and seeing what goes on. But I learn a lot by teaching and by critiquing, by giving feedback. Right now, these are just big geometric shapes, not geometric, but just big solid forms. I'll get in here and manipulate and change and get some detail. But again, I'm planning to come in with oils. Right now, I'm just kind of deciding how things are working together, how these big shapes, remember, we just want to keep it as simple, as few shapes, as few values, kind of for as long as we can. Painting up to the edges, if that's important to you. When you see somebody just making a big mess like this, doesn't it almost feel like either they're messing up or they're cheating? Like, oh, they're just putting in these big value planes and these big, simple shapes. And it's a hard concept for so many painters that the detail comes. The detail shows itself. But first, we got to figure out the relationships. Shape relationships, value relationships, color, temperature, all those different things. And I'm just kind of establishing that, giving myself placement.
I remember the first class I took with you last year. And you started doing a path or something, and I couldn't understand what you were doing or what you were seeing, and it made no sense to me whatsoever.
Does it now?
Yes.
All right, I've broken you. Make you, yeah, it's right, because it's not a path, it's not a field, it's not a pond, it's just values and shapes beside each other. It's up to you, the viewer, to make that into a pond. or it's up to the viewer who's looking at your painting to make that into a pond. It's our job just to put the right shapes, the right values, and the right colors in the right places. So that's all we're doing. That's all we're doing. Would you guys prefer it if I move the camera a little more sideways so I'm not getting in the way of it? Or do you guys like the little more straight on view like this? I'll just try
I
to,
like the straight on view.
I'll try to see.
Yeah, we can see.
way
Yeah.
too much.
Yeah, the straight on view is fine.
It makes me just learn how to use the end of my brush so I'm not putting my whole arm in the way and reach across, especially at this stage. Again, it's pretty messy, pretty haphazard.
So Michael, I've got a question on the left side grasses. You put several dark straight lines across the top of that.
Left side over here.
Yeah, well, yeah, more, well, no. Yeah, like that. And then you had like 4 on the right side of those grasses. Anyway, no, yeah, so you just went doom, doom, doom up towards the pond. And I'm just curious, what is it you're seeing in the picture that translates into those lines?
I see straight lines for one, but also it helps the scene to lie down. That was kind of what I meant also about the creeks and stuff, is a lot of beginner painters really overread the lumps and the bumps and the turns and creeks and things. It's actually, they're oftentimes quite a bit straighter, and then they'll lay down. If I bring in, let me get some black paint. If I look at these grasses and go, oh, the grasses are lumpy and bumpy and like this, it just doesn't feel right. So I just look into their shadows or the darker forms and say, okay, there's a line there, there's a line there. And it's not like a super line, because I'm going to come back in, like if we look at this line, I'm going to come back in with other values and break that up a little bit and get some of that texture. But the line is still implied and things are still lying down flat, hopefully. So,
Got it. Thank you.
yeah, it just really helps to keep, you'll see even on the road, like even though the road is going up and turning, the road's going up, I'm still gonna see how many kind of straight lines can I kind of hint at that will help it lay down. They're gonna get obliterated and destroyed, but it helps me to make sure things are lying down. And I keep saying lying down, but I think that's what I mean. It's just not floating away, not going up and down hills unnecessarily that I don't want there. When we go through and look at the creek paintings from each other, just look and say, does that look like that creek is lying down, or does it look like the creek is all of a sudden going uphill and downhill and uphill? And not, because I do want it to go uphill back here, right? It's kind of flat here, and then this flatness ends at the base of this hill, and then we're going to go up this hill, and there's a little bit of a dome to it, or a little bit of a arch shape to it, this hill coming back there. So if you want it to lay flat, let it lay flat and figure out how to do that. This brush is so not interesting to me. Just this old beat up. It's basically a filbert now. Probably was a flat at one point. Can't even read it. So I'm just gonna, oh, I need to put my road in. Yeah, I'm just kind of looking for marks, but yeah, if I put them in from one way to another, they seem to, and maybe that's just me. I never really thought about it. That's a good question about putting them in like lines. It just seems to help me to make them feel like they're laying down. I can kind of figure out their place in space a little bit better. Like by putting all these lines back here versus just up the front, it gets busy feeling. So I want to kind of knock some of that out.
You're basically putting in the contours of the land.
Yeah, trying to. I'll let this paint start to set for a second because I actually, in the sky, it's going to be just kind of a big value gradient almost. But I want to step back and kind of judge here and see, do I have my big shapes? Again, I'll come back in and make them prettier, hopefully. And, but do I have the big shapes, the big information kind of in the right places before I come in and start getting too much detail? I could also wait and put the whole sky and the pond in and everything else with just oils because you know, I don't need really, really specific things as long as I get close enough, but I kind of think I might like to see what I can do with values in acrylics for the sky and everything else. So I'm going to go ahead and put in some of the light color. And then again, I'm just going to step back for a minute or two and let these paints start to set up, meaning start to dry just a little more than they are. My light is right over here. Not a huge difference between that really light gray that I have.
How are you liking working on the canvas?
It's definitely got more texture. It's grabbing the paint off differently, meaning I don't push it around as much, but I'm kind of hoping too, I'll build up some acrylic paint and just giving myself some kind of marks with the sky as well. I know that's hard to see. Not much of a transition, but hopefully as we build that up and get some of the darker sky, I'm gonna be able to see it a little more.
Chemtrails.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Contrails. Yes.
Haha.
Just a little bit lighter. Should probably be using brushes that get a little more controlled than I have, but let's see what happens. Bring this up. Let this get a little darker as we start getting towards that side of the sky. Remember, it's just reflecting what's above it, basically. I'll have to remember that when it comes to colors and everything else as well. Don't like the shapes of whatever these are, but maybe I kind of like that where it's more spindly, like the little things just kind of hugging along the side of a little pond. But yeah, this stage is just kind of about like discovery, about just kind of like who wants to play on this farm at sunset at the pond, who wants to exist in this little world that I'm building right now. What I do like about acrylics is how quickly I can come back in with lights over darks, darks over lights. You can just go back and forth so quickly. It's so nice and forgiving. It's a nice stage to be forgiven at because so they're making a lot of mistakes or testing a lot of things, I should say. Lots of little quick experiments. This got super busy. Chop, 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 chop. Not fun, not interesting. Looks like teeth. So it's gonna come through and mow that down a little bit. See, so again, it's that test of how does it make my heart feel, my blood pressure, my shoulders, you know, when I look at things and it makes me achy or makes me tighten up a little bit. And I'm like, okay, what's wrong? I think my pond got a little bigger than I wanted it over here. I like the fact that it's just a tiny little streak of light. I also want to make sure that it's pretty straight. I feel like maybe it's leaning down to the right a little bit more than I want. Everything is fixable at this stage and simple to fix. So I want to get any of the things I'm not sure about dealt with now. Anybody seeing anything glaring at this point? Because what I want to do now is step back to the back of my studio, have that whiskey drink that, just kidding. But I want to step back. I've got a little chair back there behind me, not a pit chair, but a window bench. And I like to just get a little bit of a look at it from a little bit further away. It's like trying to get those fresh eyes so I can kind of see
Get it now.
if
Michael, are you still looking at the photo reference at this point or just responding to what's down there?
both. I forgot I had the printouts beside me. I've been looking kind of at the monitor, but it's just a little picture. Yeah, and what I have now, I believe, is a good start. I'm going to come back in and add more and hopefully make it a little prettier. I admit that this is pretty slapdash and archaic or whatever, juvenile looking right now. But I feel like what I'm doing is just, yeah, I want to check lines. Maybe this light over here and maybe that angle. I thought it'd be kind of nice having it come up, but I think maybe having it a little.
Excellent. Yes.
Yeah, again, I'm just testing. I'm just kind of looking around and just, how does that make me feel? Does that make my shoulders tighten up or my, whatever it is? It's interesting. You guys know that, right? You guys have seen that where you're like at a gallery show or whatever, and you look at a painting and it just doesn't make you feel right. And then you just kind of start to ask questions of what about it's not making you feel good? You know, is it the angles off and that's messing with the perspective, or?
Michael, at this point, are you at all concerned about leaving any texture from the acrylic paint that might, I don't know, interfere with your decisions later on?
A little bit. I'm definitely not painting so thick, so globby.
So you're,
And
you're keeping it thin?
I'm gonna come back in with more acrylic and then start to add texture, but it'll be more with my shop brushes, which adds, you know, little streaks, not these big thick globs. But for me, actually, it's kind of an advantage because I paint fairly thin.
Hmm,
Nice to have that bit of texture that the acrylics give me. I almost feel like it's a 2-for-1, where I get this kind of implied texture to build on. But yeah, it's really annoying, especially when it's not right.
I feel like acrylics dry fairly flat, even when you have a glob. They don't stay up as much as oils do.
Yeah, they do. They definitely kind of sink down. That kind of feel like a bridge going back in there.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
I don't want this road, of course, as obvious as I have it, but you know, back here, but it's just it's a reminder for now. Putting a little bit of fog, letting this hill start to fall back, hopefully.
I could do this.
Messy brushes. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, like I said, is I'm gonna go back, I'm gonna sit down, and I'm gonna observe. If you guys would like another little break, this is a good opportunity to take a 2-3 minute break. And I'm just going to make some big, and you guys are more than welcome to talk to me. When I say a break, I don't mean be left alone. I'm just gonna go back. I'm not gonna be painting on the monitor for a second, just so I can begin to judge and see, are things playing together nicely? Because I would hate to have like, oh man, this whole road needs a different shape. I would rather do that now than try to do it with color, you know, later with the oil paints. I would rather, it's always easier to make changes and fix things earlier in the painting than it is later. So the best time to fix something is when you see it, as a general rule. Not always, but as a general rule. So yeah, I should walk back with, probably with the reference kind of in my hand, or maybe if I was smart, I'd actually have it taped up here so I can actually see it. All right, it's taped. And you can decide, you know, when, if you're doing this picture or whatever picture you do, you can decide, like, I want it exactly like my references, or, you know, it's a jumping off point and I'm just kind of using it. It's up to you completely of how, you know, do you judge yourself by literally having things lining up perfectly, or is close enough, or, you know what I mean? Sometimes I admit I sound like a crazy person when I talk. So I'm kind of looking at the reference and the painting and saying, you know, what's better in the painting than in the reference, and what's better in the reference than in the painting? Not, is it exactly the same? Like, I kind of like the different tree shapes I have going on. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
So I'm just sitting as far away as I can get. I still don't like the right pond. I still feel like it's too big. I like the smallness of it in the reference, so I'm going to make that a little bit smaller. I think I've broken up the tree shapes on the left hill, top hill, a little too much, but I do like kind of that weird shape of the, kind of, if you were to say, the middle tree on the far back area. I kind of like that weird little directionality and kind of danciness. I'm just scanning my eyes, top to bottom, from side to side, and just how does it feel? And there's a couple things, mostly about the ponds right now, that I'm not.
So Michael, what bothers me about the pond is that it seems to choke down too much to get under that bridge.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, for
So
sure.
if it were a stream coming in and going underneath that bridge into a larger pond, I'm just thinking logically. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think by making it smaller on the right side,
And it makes me wonder, what is the bridge made out of? Because if it's just a dirt road, how is it on both sides, or is it just filled up? And then I would think that the road, to be safe, that road should be a little bit wider.
Hmm.
part.
I'd be worried if I owned that farm that road's gonna flood out pretty soon.
Right.
Somebody's an engineer.
Hey, Michael, one of the things I see about the road is very subtle, like on the right side of the road, there's just a slight angle change in the photos that I think adds some interest. Am I seeing that in the photos?
Yeah, and you're right. How it kind of goes sideways angle, and then it comes a little steeper down closer to us, right?
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
See, that's exactly, those are things that are much easier to fix now than later.
It does seem a little too wide at the bottom as well.
The water looks like it might have changed from a stream to a river.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I like it as a river.
So do I. It's not bad.
No,
I don't know. I like the littleness on the right side. So I'm gonna make it smaller on the right, I think.
maybe it's just a value thing with it being
Get some more
so
coffee.
light next to the bridge.
Yeah, absolutely. That
Yeah.
that is part of it. Let's try.
A lot of times when it's really narrow, you'll have a culvert pipe and then you'll have the road go over it.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
not a real bridge.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just kind of a lump of the hill. So I could almost hint at it, like bumping up ever so slightly. Yeah, I'm just gonna try to figure some of these shapes out a little better. So with the road, I feel like And it's funny because I draw creeks and roads all the time, but they're still tricky. Kind of, it's gonna hold up my brush angle. So it definitely is steeper down here. It's goes across. Possibly a little more, and then it's kind of more of a severe turn there. So if that's the case, and this isn't so sharp, it's more rounded. And it's just so nice with acrylics that you can just kind of come in with these darks all of a sudden, give yourself your form back, your structure. Or your lights, whatever. So that's, I guess that's what I'm saying. With this painting, I'm going to spend a little more time just trying to get things right. And placement is really important. And at this point, yeah, most of my lines are kind of either horizontal or vertical. They'll appear to create angles, diagonals, but go ahead back in with kind of darker base layer with this. I'm just going to take away some of this angle so it's more straight across. And again, even if you're not using acrylics or you're using oils, which is again up until recently what I would have normally done. It's the same thing. It's still easier to fix at this stage, even with oils. It's just with the acrylics, it lets me go back basically right away. just slowly kind of narrowing it down, seeing how that feels. I can always just come back in with lighter paint again, go right over the top if I get too narrow. I know this kind of not very as entertaining as the big, you know, splashing on colors and everything else, but again, it's just easier now than later. I've got two dark shapes on top of each other. I believe this is a tree way back there. So I just want to make sure that they don't look like they have anything to do with each other.
The trees that you're painting just to the right seem to be evenly spaced or pretty close.
These, yeah,
Yeah.
right. So let's give this guy a little bit of his own space and let's connect these. Using a couple different brushes to let them kind of make their own marks a little bit. Darken this guy just a touch so it looks like he's sitting on top of that hill back there. And I'm also just going to darken the top of the hill line where there's some things growing. That will again change. It's just markers for me for right now. When I go back to the light paint, I'll come back in and carve out some nice, hopefully little holes in here and make it a little more interesting. Very boring brushwork in here, but I'm gonna hopefully do some of that with the bigger shop brushes. All right, so did that look a little better, the design? I know that now it looks like a cartoon, so it's outlined, but do the shapes feel a little better to you guys?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Looks good.
So I'm gonna start laying in bigger shapes. And just following some of that design that I have. These nice shop brushes, I shouldn't say nice, these horrible shop brushes instinctually just make kind of organic brush marks that I can use or disregard later. You see this bump? How stupid that looks? It doesn't make any sense, so I'm just going to flatten that out. And now hopefully break it up so it's a little more organic. I'm not rushing to detail at all right now. And I could completely just block it in big shapes and then let the oils do the detail work. But I do want to have kind of a hinting of some of the brush work. And I like when I glaze in over the top before I come in with, you know, thicker oils, letting some of the hopefully starting to feel a little more organic and a little more natural. as I start coming in and kind of messing things up, actually. It's the light beginning to hit some of these grasses down below. This is where I get to start it, hopefully bringing in some of those nice greens that were in our initial photo, you know, with the vineyard shapes that we decided we didn't like. Still not liking what this is going on here. But yeah, I just love the fact that I can just go over the top so quickly and just slightly shift the values. Just, I know my light source is right in here, so I'm just kind of, grass is over here, probably picking up a little more. These guys are going to be more on shadow because they're facing away. It's a little too light for being so close to the edge. I want to kind of keep my focus in this area. So I want to make sure my values kind of help with that a little bit. If I can. So even now you can kind of see in some of it how much more organic all of a sudden the bottom is beginning to feel. I got my structure in, I'm kind of laying in some of the differing values, but by kind of coming in and obliterating and letting the brushes make some of the marks that they want to make. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and let these trees probably kind of die down a little bit because I want to get in some lighter values over the tops of them. I'll come back in and draw them a little bit prettier, hopefully. I'm kind of welcoming almost, I don't want to say happy accidents at this point, you know, Bob Ross style, but I'm definitely kind of seeing what happens by letting the brush kind of dance around and make some slightly out of control. I'm not trying to create any perfect shapes at this stage. I'm thinking kind of big to small. So I'm looking, squinting my eyes and trying to kind of simplify those clouds because I could definitely get caught up in the minutia and all the pretty little swirly shapes and everything. Oops. Sorry, that's the gallery I'm supposed to go meet with in a little while. So instead, I'm just going to do kind of the big shapes, knowing that they're just simply values and that I can kind of mix these back up and bring detail later. It's not really purposely messy, but at the same time, just like I kind of did with the road and with the grasses, I'm just thinking big shapes and design. You can hear the pressure changing in the brush. Ooh, look at those. That's kind of nice. Not what I want, but kind of something's happening there. It is weird with the canvas. It's picking up little the impurities in the weave, and there's little clumps of paint kind of sticking in spots. I'm not used to that happening. I kind of forgot about that a little bit. Go ahead and give it a quick let the paint slip and slide a little easier. I just got to be careful that I'm not making the same mark, hitting with the same pressure, you know, letting the brushes have their fun. Not holding it the whole same way, not holding it like a pencil. Changing the angle, changing the pressure, changing the speed. That's something we haven't talked about. Changing the speed at which you move the brush with actually makes a pretty big difference, strangely. Having a sky really changes it, doesn't it?
I like that.
I do like the photo reference sky quite a lot, so you know I want to use it, but I'm not being slavish to it by any means. It's up to you again how you know, I've taught lots of engineers and scientists and mathy people, and you know they just want to build the puzzle like it says, or you know, put together the model or build the Legos just like they appear on the box. And other people who are more like me and just like, just that's what's on the box is just a suggestion. Let's have fun and see what happens. Let's let these brushes. Dan,
Michael, I'm gonna throw a question out here. I'm just wondering, that big sky, and it's so beautiful. It's making me want to feel more, more pastoral kind of feel in your middle ground. What would it do to your perspective? I mean, I'm just sitting here thinking, would it be possible? I'm not asking you to do it. I'm just asking, would it be possible to have a greater amount of middle ground than showing than the foreground, or would that mess up a perspective?
no, yeah, you definitely could. I think so. Yeah, and we even tried editing out, more down here. You definitely could, or you could, yeah. I mean, you saw all the different alterations, and that was just, doing it really fast. If you actually tried out some different ideas and tricks, yeah,
I
there's a
can't
lot.
really remember making the middle ground larger. I mean, this works incredibly well. I don't mean it doesn't. I'm just wondering, since you're painting the sky, I'm feeling something now.
So you're saying that you like the middle ground bigger, like this portion of it? Is that
Yes, yes, correct.
yeah,
I'm just wondering what it would do, just because the sky is just beautiful.
yeah, I would totally suggest you experimenting with that. You'll get this photo reference, and you can go in there and you could just do a couple copies of it, one that has a bigger foreground, and just simply lay it over the top of the other one if you don't have Photoshop or you're not comfortable with Photoshop. Yeah, there's all sorts of options here.
Yeah, I do have Photoshop, and I do try and play with it a little, but I need a class.
Yeah, I mean, you see how much I get in trouble with it, and how much I've been using the same stupid old version of it. I mean, I am so scared that it's going to ask me to update one day, and that it will be just gone. I caught you. You've been stealing this since you were in college.
Well, no, I mean, I used to have the old Photoshop on an older computer, and I could work it better. It's different, the more up-to-date version.
Yeah, I mean, supposedly it's smarter, but it's easier, but it does so much more, that it's learning all those different tricks. And again, I rarely care to create a pretty Photoshop image, because again, I just want to get something to kind of jump off, create, yeah, just the beginning of an inspiration. Because I still love the discovery on the canvas.
I'm loving that sky.
Thank you. No, I think it's going to be fun when we bring in some color and
What I'm liking, Michael, is that there are multiple interesting parts of this painting, focal points. There, everything from the trees over on the right, which are really interesting, to the road, to the sky. It keeps you in the picture.
Oh, good.
Or it keeps me anyway.
I agree 100%.
Good. Yeah, no, I'm having a good time, and I appreciate your guys' feedback and helping me to see things. Because again, I wouldn't, I paint fast, but I rarely paint as fast as I do when I'm in class. I just don't want to waste your time, and I want to keep things moving. And so,
So you're gonna
go ahead.
photograph this so we can have a still posted on Facebook of the black and white?
Of the black and white, sure. And I'll post a black and white of the photo as well.
Yeah, okay.
This one, yeah. I actually, during one of our breaks, I put those together. So I will, as soon as class is over, save save and share those to the group. Are you guys using the media section, or do you prefer I just post them right to the main page?
I'm using the media section for reference photos.
That way you don't have to go through hundreds of, everybody's beautiful pictures when you're looking for a certain thing. So I will put it there into the media section. And I'll just make class 7. How about that? Little folder, so it's, you don't have to sift through everything. Again, I kind of know what the brush is gonna do, but I kind of don't. And it's generally pretty fun. Sometimes you get an oh no experience, of course, but just using this crappy shop brush. And you can even see that once I pull off enough light paint, there's dark paint underneath. And it's kind of interesting as you build up. I'm just looking at the values. I want my brightest brights down in here, but some of these areas are going to be kind of bright. And again, I'll be able to change those with the colors and things that I add in oil paint as well.
Look at this guy now.
It sure is different than when you started. I thought.
Make sure you say nice things. I can hear you. Oh,
Thought I was muted.
that's all right. I thought you unmuted it because you weren't saying nice things. So there you go.
No. My husband is sitting behind me on his computer, and he looks over once in a while and is loving watching the progression of this painting.
Good. Thank you. That's Bob. Is that his name?
Uh-huh.
All right. Hi,
It has
Bob.
been for years.
Oh, good. Hopefully you're feeling well, Bob.
Thank you.
Lots better.
I'm glad to hear that.
I see almost an eye in the dark section in the upper right.
Over here, up here.
Down a little lower.
I see it.
Sky, go to your
Far
right,
right,
go to your right there.
Up,
See right, the
up.
dark right above,
right
right
there.
there.
An eye, like an eyeball.
Yeah,
Cool.
an actual eye with a iris and a white pupil.
Maybe you can see it in the image.
It's like here.
Above, little bit up, a little more.
Maybe that just enhances the romance of the painting.
Yeah, it's surrealism.
I see it too, now that you pointed it out.
Now try not to see it. That's the secret.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, did I get rid of it? That one?
No, you weren't even in the area.
Okay, I didn't think so.
It's about halfway between that mountain on the right and the top of the painting. Yeah, about there, a little bit more to your right.
It's
No,
like a
it's dark.
swirl.
Dark, right there, a swirl.
Huh.
Maybe it doesn't show up in real life.
I don't know. It might. I'm also standing off at an angle from everything because
Yeah,
that's always so weird is painting for students and demos and stuff. Because I'm not a small guy, so I always have to stand off to the side. But I would never paint, standing to the left of my painting in normal. So it is kind of funny at the end of the class sometimes when I'm like, oh man, you can really see the difference of the paint strokes as they go across as I'm reaching out for them a little more.
So Michael, is that a row of sort of planted trees in the foreground there, and then you're doing taller trees in the background?
In theory, I think so. I'm thinking these are more like bushes, but because they're so close, they appear big. I kind of,
I'm
Yeah.
talking about on the left. The left, right there. Those darker ones, from here, they look, I can't see it in the reference photo, what those trees actually look like.
I believe it's a line of oak trees. This is Montanore Vineyard, and it's really famous for its really old oak trees. Unfortunately, a bunch of them came down in the last couple of years. Yeah, my favorite tree wasn't there this last time I went and visited. Yeah, just lots and lots of big, noble, beautiful oak trees, which is probably one of the reasons I like it out there so much, because those are my favorite trees, I would have to say. Again, just that kind of canopy shape. But yeah, I've got to be careful that I'm not repeating my spacing, kind of like I did here. It's going to get dark. I don't remember what I was going to say. Arched oak trees?
Oh, repeating your spacing, you said.
Didn't want to repeat it. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I just want to make sure it's not lump, 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 all the same. We have grander trees, and these are all kind of lining up. So maybe I'll make this guy a little taller. Always trying to see who can I connect, who can I bind. Okay, well, it's only 12, so I'm going to keep painting for a little while, but I think that unless you guys would like me to stop and do a little quick feedback on anything that you posted, but otherwise I'm just going to kind of keep plugging away. But I think you guys get, and I guess this isn't the end of class, but I'm just trying to say is that that you guys kind of get what I'm doing here. Just, it started with big shapes. It started with really just trying to lock in my the design, the shapes, values, and those relationships. And the truth is, I wish I would spend more time doing what I tell you to do. Because I get in trouble all the time, and it almost always comes back to these very things.
I wish I would spend more time doing what you tell us to do.
What's that?
I said, I wish I would spend more time doing what you tell us to do.
Yeah, and you're one of the best at doing all these different little studies and sketches. But I will tell you, and I've told this story before, is my buddy Anton is a younger painter than I am. And in fact, my gallery out at the coast, Dragonfire, even emailed me at like a long time ago now, probably 10, maybe more than 10 years ago, and emailed me and like, we have this really promising young artist, but he's doing everything wrong. He just doesn't know. He's literally just started showing. And can you take him under your wing a little bit, which was, a nice compliment. I was already. And so I did. And then he and I became good friends, and I was just talking to him about how to present at the gallery and what they want, what their expectations were, blah, blah, blah. But very quickly became friends and started painting together. And I would go out, plein air painting, and just set up and want to just get rocking and rolling as quickly as possible. I was always afraid I was going to miss whatever felt like perfect light at that moment. And he would pull out his little sketchbook and do his preliminary sketches. They would be pretty rude, pretty simplistic, but at the same time, kind of beautiful as he's just kind of figuring out balance and weight. And I don't get any credit because I didn't teach him that stuff. But it was amazing watching him and how much better and how quickly he got better by putting in the extra work and doing the sketches and figuring out a lot of that stuff. And then it was, what really impressed me too was that I'd be like, oh man, I'm already, a third of the way done, and that sucker's still over there doing his sketches. And then all of a sudden I'd look up again and he would be, well past me in the painting because he'd already figured out so much of the stuff in the painting. And what's funny is I should have known all that from my history of being an illustrator, because of course I'm doing all these sketches and going out and getting my references. But we just get caught up in the excitement of it. And it's almost always, even if you feel like you're kind of missing the light or whatever else, it's worth getting the big stuff figured out. Any of you guys do carpentry work or build, like have built a deck or help build a deck or anything, you'll know that it's, if you just go out there and just start knocking in nails, laying out boards and knocking in nails, you're going to get yourself in a lot of trouble. It really helps to have that plan. And again, not a lesson I learned very consistently. It's a lesson I have to be reminded of over and over.
Wow. Well, if you have time, I would love a little critique.
All right. Yeah, I keep thinking I should be done, but then I'm like, oh, but I don't want to waste all these acrylic paints I have out.
Can you put a plastic wrap over it?
I'm sure I can. I'll just spray them good. Maybe put them in a little dish with edges. Let's put a little light on the top of this guy over here.
Yeah, but it's all gray, right?
It's all gray. Yeah, no, I'm not afraid of not being able to come back in and do what needs doing. It's more of
Saving paint.
just saving the paint. Yeah, not that it again is expensive or anything. It's just acrylic. I use
So what you can do with acrylic is take a sheet of saran wrap, scrape up all your wet acrylic, lump it in the middle, tie the saran wrap up with a rubber band or a baggy tie so that you have like a little package, a little ball, and then just leave it in there. And then when you need it, you poke it with a pin and squeeze the acrylic out.
I love that. I love that. You totally see that you've made your own little tube. Just see if I have a little more highlights for when we come in, and I don't know, I'm sure you guys always have this too. Okay, I'm almost done. Just one more brush. One more. And now I'm thinking, oh, if I'm going to come in and varnish or glaze into it with the first color, I want to be able to have some lights to pick up on. That's not a fun brush. Just add a little texture into the grasses, and then I promise.
This is beautiful, even in black and white. It is really beautiful.
Good, thank you. Yeah, I've had so much fun working with the black and white acrylic paint. And you guys have been, a number of you guys have been with me the whole journey. That's still pretty new to me. I did used to work with black and white gesso for a little while, thinking that must be making such a nice ground, but it's so absorbent of the color that you put into it. So probably was a nice ground to work into.
Michael, before you turn it off away from the painting, can we see it completely straight ahead?
Sure. Just texture, 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 implied texture. Looking for irregular brush marks.
Whoa.
Wow.
Wow, that's amazing. Black and white.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Beautiful.
It's a
There's just-
nocturne.
There's black and black.
What the lights of the sky look like. I mean, that's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of a night scene.
Yeah.
It looks great. I like it.
The lights traveling through it, okay, like that. There's still logic to that, how the light's moving across the scene. Bam. Focus. Oh, sorry guys, just kicked the tripod. Focus on my hand. Straighten that out a little bit. All right, gang, we're gonna go a little bit long, so I'm gonna, because I need another 5-minute break, just to get my throat and talk in order again, and we will meet back up, and whoever is left, I will quickly give some feedback, or we'll talk about your paintings. And just kidding, I'm gonna start painting again.
Okay, so our assignment is to do our underpainting for next week.
Yeah, yeah, and if you want to ask me for feedback on, you know, the reference or anything else, please reach out and I will do my best. Sorry, last week was so busy. Yeah, it's very messy. That's some very brushy brushwork. I don't think it looks quite like that in my painting, but and it's weird with the blue in the top of the sky. Anyways, 5-minute break. Well, let's just take a 3-minute, 4-minute break. And we'll be right back. And just before 12:20, and then let's spend a little while talking about, oh wait, 9 to 12, we're already long.
Yeah.
Oh, because yeah, I need to run to the gallery.
Okay, you do that. We'll do our homework.
Okay, sorry guys.
But I do want to see a still picture of this black and white.
Post that right now before I leave. Yeah, I need to go throw everything in the car and get out of here. I don't know. I thought we were still going to 12:30. So I apologize. If you guys would be so awesome as to go on the page and give each other some feedback, and I will do the same this evening.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do that. That can be a little bit of a
Okay.
Great. All right, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Michael.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.